Hey there, Luke here from Flukes Kitesurfing, and in this video we're going to talk about positioning your hands on the bar. So a couple of different options for where you might position your hands on the bar. I'll also give you some tips on how I like to do it in a session, why I move my hands out or in, and what you might look for. When we look at the bar and our hands on the bar, the closer that we have our hands to the center, the more stable it will be and the less reactive the kite will be. It's when we move our hands to the outside of the bar, this is when we really get more aggressive, faster turning. So really the further you have your hands out to the side, the quicker turning the kite will be, but the more unstable it will be and the more it's likely to move around. As you come into the center, you're going to feel more stable, but it becomes harder to turn, maybe harder to water start. And you can see that while I'm holding both of my hands in the center of the bar here, I make a triangle with my arms. So this is just natural position. It's quite comfortable to have your hands like this, but it also helps you sort of lock that position, and that helps not steer the kite unintentionally. Whereas when we move our hands all the way to the outside, it feels much more loose because it's in your shoulders now and you sort of stabilize in it with your shoulders, but at the same time it gives you more movement with your elbows and your shoulders, so you can really steer the kite. And of course it's a big lever, so that gives you more leverage on those back lines that can also steer the kite as well. So first let's talk about the different positions that you might hold the bar. So you might hold the bar right in the center, nice and close to this center line. You might hold the bar right to the outside, hands pressed up into the corners of the bar, and you might hold the bar in the middle here. You might also hold the bar with one hand on either side. And one thing I want to say right at the very start is that when you're holding the bar, normally you would hold it evenly with both hands. So you wouldn't normally kite like this at all, and you wouldn't kite like this. You try and even those hands out so they're either both to the outside or both to the inside or both in the middle. You can split the bar, so you can actually have your finger right in between there. You can see it splits either side. That will give you a lot of control with the one hand. It allows you to steer the kite in both directions using the one hand. So that can be helpful if you're trying to do jumps and board offs. You can steer the kite back in the forward motion using your back hand instead of having to put your front hand back on the bar. So if I give you some tips for how I like to ride, what I find is that during a session, I might move my hands slightly into the middle of the bar here so that I can steer it more actively. So if I'm trying to power stroke or get speed or something like that. But then as soon as I'm up and running and I'm landing on the water, I like to move my hands right back into the center. And this is where they'll stay until I'm ready to maybe do a more powerful turn, or I even jump and then slide it out to do a loop. But most of the riding is happening right here close to the center line. What I've found that does is it makes it comfortable for your shoulders, it locks the kite in position, and it also feels very secure or stable, and when you crash, it doesn't do anything unexpected. I will ride with my hands in the center for pretty much everything. I mean, for jumping, riding along, even driving, and like all sorts of tricks like that. The only time that I ever move my hand right to the outside corner of the bar is when I'm looping. So if I'm doing a jump and I want to loop the kite very aggressively, or even if you're doing a loop, maybe a water start loop or something that you really want the kite to pivot around very quickly, that's when I'll move my hand right to the outside. Okay, so let's cover a few do's and don'ts. I think that for just general riding, try and always focus on having your hands nice and close. When you're launching or landing, same deal. Don't have your hands right on the outside. You don't want anything too aggressive to happen. When you're just riding along, so if you're just tacking along the water, don't be riding like this. You don't really, this will create a lot of problems. It does for beginners, particularly if you're learning. Bring those hands in, nice and close to the center. That's going to give you the most comfort. I think another one of the big don'ts is don't fly one-handed with your hand right on the outside. Again, you're trying to keep your hand about in the center here when one-handed riding. The reason that it can be nice to have your hand in the middle of the bar for the one-handed riding and not right next to the center of the bar or the center line is when you're riding along, the kite is actually sort of falling, and so you do need to steer a little to keep the kite in the air. So it can be more comfortable to have your hand it's about in the center of in between the outside and right here while you're just riding along. I find that can be comfortable as well. Like I mentioned, you might want to change your position while you're riding. It's definitely something that I do. So I'll be riding along, both hands in the center of the bar, and then I'll know, okay, I'm going to do a jibe. I might move my hand out just slightly, just a couple of inches or 5 centimeters or so from the center line. So it gives me a bit more power or a bit more control with the turn-in as I go into those turns. So I think that that's about it for this video. Hopefully it's a simple video, but it can make a big difference to your session if you have got your hands in the right place. Move them out when you really want to aggressively turn the kite, but then have them closer and fix those shoulders and make that feel more comfortable when you're just riding around. When you're launching and landing, try and keep the kite under control so nothing crazy happens. When you're entering the water, same deal. Get that hand right next to the center line so the kite doesn't get sent back in any direction while you might be dealing with waves or your board or getting spun around or anything like that. The closer you have your hand to the center, the more stable that kite's going to be, even when you're not looking at it. So anyway, hope that helps. Luke here again from Flukes Kitesurfing. Let us know if you have any questions. Subscribe if you want to see some more videos, and we will see you in the next one. We're posting videos every single week on Sundays, so we'll see you next week.